Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. One of the bits of analysis and advice that Plutarch is going to provide in his work, How to Tell a Flatterer from a Friend, to a late modern audience is going to sound as if he's talking about different sorts of relationships, as if he's talking about people that these days we typically call abusers. And really, flatterers in ancient times did something kind of similar. So there might be some overlap between these categories here. And he tells us that one of the ways that we can tell the difference between flatterers and friends, the great difference, he says, between them, is how they treat, or what their disposition, the diathesis, the sort of continual attitude, habit, way of dealing with people, what that is towards somebody else's other friends. Now, the flatterer is pretending to be a friend. So they're trying to insinuate themselves under the same rubric. And this is assuming the person does have other friends, other good relationships that are not with flatterers. So we can look at that, and then we can tell what this difference is if we're actually paying attention. So what is a friend's actual disposition? Plutarch is going to tell us a friend finds it most pleasant to do two things that are reciprocal to each other: to love, or to have friendship, philein, and to be loved, or to have friendship given to you, the affection. So it goes both ways, phileisthai. One is the active and one is the passive. It's the same action going both ways. And he says this is to be loved and to love with many, metapolon. So not just the single friend by themselves, oh, we are best friends forever, it's us against the world. That's not actually the attitude of the friend. They want to be involved with the friend, but the friend with others. And why is that? Well, they want their friend, they endeavor to have their friend, that their friend should have many friends, polophilia, that they shouldn't be the only friend of their friend. This is how you can tell that somebody really is a friend. They don't want to monopolize the relationship. Now, isn't that interesting? And they not only want their friend to have many other friends, they also want them to be honored by many other people, including those friends. Polytimia in this. Polus means many, right? Or multiple. And so there's this beautiful phrase, friends own everything in common. And Plutarch says, the real friend is not going to be so much focused on, your house is my house or something like that. What they really think is the best thing are other friends, right? No possession ought to be held in common as much as friends. So that's the disposition of a real friend, a true friend. What about the flatterer? The flatterer is going to be different. And Plutarch gives some stuff that looks like, just basically disparagement, but it all has a point here. The flatterer is false, pseudes. Pseudos is a lie, so it's not just the thing that isn't true or doesn't happen to be true. They are actually imitating the truth, but they're a false person. Spurious, nothos, and debased. Hupo halkos. Now, halkos means, a kind of metal. Typically, we translate that as brass or bronze or copper or stuff like that. And this leads directly into what he's going to say next. So because the flatterer is false, spurious, and debased, they understand that they're committing a crime. They're doing injustice, adikia, against friendship. And in their hands, this is a metaphor that Plutarch has used in other places, that friendship becomes a debased coin, a counterfeit coin, a coin that won't hold up to scrutiny. You can't truly use it to purchase anything good. So, just like people who pass fake currency and they try to get it into the economy, that's what the flatterer is doing. So this is going to affect the way that they relate to other people. And there's going to be a couple different wrinkles to this. So he says that the flatterer is by nature envious. Now, some translations actually have jealous, and we should pause on that for a moment. The Greek is actually phthoneros, which is coming from thonos, envy, right? And you might say, what's the difference? Envy, jealousy, those are both synonyms. Well, in ancient Greek, they actually have a word for what we call jealousy and distinguish from envy, zelotupos, which Plutarch uses in other places and doesn't use here. What is the distinction between envy and jealousy? You are jealous over what it is that you already have or think that you have, and you don't want anyone else to have it or to participate in it. You are envious over what you don't have that somebody else does have, and you are pained by them having it. You want it for yourself, right? So you see the difference there. A good example of this, if you have a spouse and you don't want other people talking to your spouse because you're afraid that your spouse is going to transfer their affections from you to the other person who may be better looking or wealthier or a better conversationalist, you are jealous, right? If you look at somebody else and you're like, I like their spouse, I wish that person was my spouse, you are envious. So it makes a difference saying that the flatterer is jealous or envious, because the flatterer doesn't really have a hold on the friend, at least at first. So they are by nature envious. And interestingly, what he says next, so in one English translation of it is that they employ their enviousness against their own kind, uses their enviousness. They here it is, chretai, the word for to make use of or to have a certain comportment towards others. They show that envy against people who are similar to them. Who are people similar to them? Other flatterers. Maybe flatterers can recognize each other, whereas people who are more sincere have a harder time doing that. Now, it could also mean people that are on the same level as them. Now, they're not envious of people lower than them, but they are envious of people who are on the same level because they're lacking something. By contrast to people who are greater than them, krechon in Greek, they, as he says, stand in dread, treme, the word we get tremor from, okay, dedoikein, they are in great fear or dread of these people, and they behave in a, fawning way towards them. And we're going to see this come up in relation to other friends. Now, coming back to the own kind, he says, they strive to outdo them in what? In scurrility, which is, saying bad things, about people, and idle gossip, bomologia, right? So it's a little bit difficult to convey these. They try to outdo them in bad-mouthing people. And this is going to show up again later in relation to the other friends. So how does a flatterer treat other friends? There's this interesting story being told here, a kind of simile, where Plutarch says that there was a painter who had a picture of some roosters, right? A man had painted a wretched picture of some roosters, and the painter told his servant to scare away all the real roosters as far as possible from the canvas. Why? Because if you got a real rooster and you're not a very good painter, then the imitation rooster doesn't pass muster. You can tell, hey, that's a fake right there, right? If you're a flatterer, you don't want any real friends anywhere nearby. So what will the flatterer do? They will try to scare away the true, the alethine, right, the genuine friends, because they don't want any comparison going on there. Try to scare them away, and they also don't allow those friends to come near. I mentioned earlier that abusers will often engage in similar behavior. What do we call that? Isolating the victim. In this case, it's the flatterer isolating their victim, their target, from their genuine friends. We could broaden this more widely and say the flatterer is a kind of abuser, and they're taking advantage of friendship. But people could do this with romantic relationships. People could do this with family relationships. Oh, they're not your real family. I'm your real family, right? Now, what if they can't succeed in that? So here's where they show greater duplicity. There's a open phaneros, right? And then there's a hidden latros side to what the flatterer will do with those friends. To these people's faces, he will openly cringe to them, right? He's showing them to be their superiors, pay them attention, make a great show of respect for them. So openly, that's what they're doing. That's what the target sees them doing to the friends. But what are they doing behind their back? He says secretly, he's suggesting hufiasai, right? And spreads hupospere. Now, hupospere, that's like scattering seeds, right? And what are they scattering? Slander, diabole. This is a very important word in ancient Greek. It's all sorts of fake charges. Calumny is another way of translating it. Anything that's bad you can say about a person could be diabole, and this could often get people in a lot of trouble. Now, he mentions, if he's not entirely successful at the start, he remembers and observes the precept of Medius. Who is this Medius guy? He was somebody who was a flatterer of Alexander the Great. And he says that this Medius was the leader and skilled master of the entire choir of flatterers. There's a whole bunch of people that are flattering Alexander, and they were banded together against good people. So he, Medius, tells the flatterers not to be afraid to assail and sting with their calumnies, their diabole, pointing out that even if the person who's stung succeeds in healing the wound, the scar will still remain. And then Plutarch goes on and says, it was by such scars or such gangrenous cancers that Alexander was actually consumed. And what did he do? He destroyed his genuine friends, Callisthenes, Parmenio, Philotas, and he put himself in the hands of the flatterers, which then leads to his own downfall. Those flatterers actually succeeded in isolating the target from their genuine friends. So, if Plutarch is right about this, then this provides us with one really great way for discerning who's a flatterer and who's a real friend. The real friend is happy to see you with other friends. It's not as if they're going to, completely accept any sort of isolation of themselves, but they don't need to be rivals. The flatterer wants anybody who isn't a flatterer working with them not to be in your close circle, and they will do whatever they can to try to isolate the victim of their flattery.